This is weird. Reminds me of my first porn chat.
Jesus. First thing we got on live. Yeah.
I feel like I should be taking off my shirt.
All right, Eric, feed me a number.
There you go. That should be our new T-shirt right there, John. A really pixelated Diego Dev. That would be awesome.
Thomas, why are you pixelated? Did you lower yours too?
Gentlemen.
Oh, yeah, I did.
You can keep it low. You actually look better, Thomas. Lowered.
Thank you.
Where's the tweet? Okay, why isn't it there yet?
I got it.
Where?
I don't. Should retweet Twitter too.
I need to learn how to use Twitter. Can somebody teach me?
Go, Eric, go.
I don't see it. I don't see it either.
I mentioned you. Just go to your homepage.
Notifications. Yes, you did.
Whatever. Hey, Eric, check what I'm drinking.
Firestone.
Stormer. What are you drinking?
The beer that Daryl got us.
Oh yeah, drink mine. Yeah.
What?
I don't like it makes my neck look so fat. All right. Gentlemen, are you ready to feel old?
Yes.
Director James Cameron's apocalyptic sci-fi movie, The Terminator, was released in 1984. I'm okay with that. I remember being a child when that movie came out. I was a very young man. A child, I might say. So I'm okay with that. But do you realize that the sequel to The Terminator, which was Terminator 2, Judgment Day, was released in 1992? This is episode 92 of PHP Ugly, the Liquid Metal T1000 episode. Welcome, gentlemen.
Oh my gosh, you're stretching. You're going to sequels to get dates.
You know, I was still a child when that one came out too.
I was out of school. I was actually out of. I finished up my couple years of community college. I think I was working a regular job. Came out, and to find out that was back in '92.
So who are you trying to make feel?
I'm gonna recount
right now. I was still in high school then.
I think that's just making you feel old. I don't think that makes either of us feel old.
Yeah.
Well, I do, because I'm now thinking back to high school, and it was a long time ago. So good job, Eric. Bastard.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Oh, yeah. Exhausted. You know, the thing I say every week.
I'm in your time zone now, Thomas, which is like really bothering me. I'm in a very pixelated Arizona, if anybody's watching the live stream. I don't know what it is about Arizona, but everything's very pixelated.
It's because I have no internet speed out there. Every time you go out there, it's painful.
And Arizona is one of these weird states where they don't change. They don't respect the daylight savings time. So it's always the same time years, which means half the year when we're in California, we're on the same time as Arizona. The other half of the year, Arizona's ahead of us by an hour. And
is it all of Arizona?
This is that half. So
yeah, is it always? Are all of Arizona or just specific cities?
I would assume all of Arizona. I don't know.
That's got to be real easy to handle when you're handling dates on a computer.
Well, they have their own special time zone. When it comes
that's
to
true.
that.
They do.
Yeah, because of that specific fact. Which I think is fine. I hate the fact that we switch back and forth twice a year.
I agree. But I think it's weird that
the fact that Arizona doesn't just goes to show you that it's not a requirement.
Right. But you're not going to please everybody. Some people like it getting dark earlier, and some people want it to stay light later. And I found myself in both camps within the past few years of that. I used to be steadfast in I wanted to stay light later so I could do stuff after work. And then I got into disc golf and wanted to play disc golf in the morning. Like, no, I want it to be light in the morning so I could get out early to play. So can't even please myself, let alone everybody else. Well, that came out really, really wrong.
I was just gonna let you roll with it, but I choked on my own laugh.
That might be a problem.
John, you have 0 cards on the Trello board.
But I got a good one.
No, you have none.
But I have a good story to talk about.
All right.
Did you see that Graham Linehan, whoever that is, confirms the IT Crowd is set for a US remake?
I did see that.
No. Yay! I love that show.
I don't think I've ever seen a whole episode. I've always seen clips of it, and I really love what I've seen. I've seen lots of parts of it. All I know is Snipehead replied to that saying, no! So I'm assuming she thinks it's going to be a terrible remake.
Yeah, I can't imagine it
we're
being
always
that great.
Making this BBC. What do you mean? We did a great job with The Office.
That's true.
Well, we fundamentally changed The Office. It just wasn't the same show. It was the same, like...
It was the same concept. I'm sure they're probably going to do the same thing. The Office, it was very much the same concept.
Yeah, I think it was, from what I've seen.
Have you ever seen the BBC Office?
I've only seen the BBC Office.
I think it could be really good because they can obviously update it to things happening today.
It's surprisingly old when you watch it because I've watched it very recently. I've watched it very recently, and it's still extremely timely when it comes to the tech side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But the business side of it is very dated. Like they make a lot of jokes about incredibly sexist environments, and
that's
it would
kind of the thing, though.
Yeah, but that would not fly. Like, in America right now, a comedy about a sexist boss.
They don't do it in a way that makes it look acceptable. The guy's an idiot.
Yeah, but he succeeds despite that.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with it. And now you can take back your words about me not having any cards. Thank you very much.
See, my issue with it is recasting because besides just Graham, Graham Linehan, who wrote it.
Oh, he wrote that?
Yeah. I'm sorry, directed. Oh no, directed and wrote it. But the key to it was Chris O'Dowd and Richard Ayoade, who were like born for that role. And if they recast them, it's, in my opinion, a huge mistake. Because I don't know how you can get those characters out of somebody else.
Again, I go back to the Office reference. I'm sure everybody thought the exact same thing about the Michael Scott character. It's like whatever his name. What was his Jarvis or
Ricky Gervais?
No, the BBC version. Gervais, yeah. I'm sure everybody said nobody can play that character but him. And
but it's a very different character between the two, and the key for that one is the character of Dwight.
Not
because the character
though.
Dwight
I don't know why
simply
you keep saying it's
doesn't.
different.
It does. The character of Dwight simply doesn't exist in the UK version. They had to make a different character.
That's what makes the US version better. I'm telling you, we did that one better.
We did it better, but it was fundamentally different. It wasn't the same show.
This on the 30-second delay all we want. It's irritating me to no end right now. So
that's why I'm pushing it as hard as I can.
I agree with Eric on this one.
It could be good. It could be terrible. Don't forget the U.S. television production companies made the Caveman show. Did you guys ever see the Caveman's TV show based off the Geico characters?
No. I don't think so. No.
Yeah. No one saw it because it was the most overtly racist thing ever put on television, and it immediately got pulled. It was disgusting. So we can ruin anything.
If we did this show.
That's specifically the three of us can ruin anything. See now,
all right, Eric, you want to tell us why you're out in Arizona? Let's move on. What's going on out there?
Yeah, this delay is really tough. No, I don't particularly want to tell you why I'm out there. It's a personal matter.
You know, he's not there on a sales trip.
I know. That's true.
So yeah, we'll keep my reason for being out in Arizona personal this time. But I am, depending on how long I stay out here, I may, if I'm actually here next week, I think the HP user group is meeting on Tuesday. So if I'm still here on Tuesday, I think I'm going to head up that way and check them out and maybe pimp Wave PHP a little bit.
Yeah, hand out some brochures and stuff.
Brochures.
I don't know.
Yeah. Really feeling like the timing on this show is so bad.
I'll fix it in post.
It's horrible right now. Tell us what have you got going on.
Oh man, I have had the week of annoyances. So I upgraded. Well, I switched over to Docker recently, and I'm really loving Docker. It's great, but between when I switched over from Docker to when I needed to go back to my Vagrant machine to do some stuff, I patched my system for Spectre and Meltdown, which flat out destroyed my ability to run Vagrant.
Really?
So, yeah, so I would say Vagrant up, and my machine would lock up hard. The screen would freeze, nothing would work, just dead right there. And I believe it's because of the Spectre Meltdown kernel patch. Or maybe any number of other things. And after messing with it for hours and hours trying to get it working again, I decided my best option was that since I was running on an old version of Ubuntu, I should probably finally take the plunge and upgrade to 17.10, the newest version of Artsy Aardvark.
Mm-hmm.
That failed mid-install.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, a little bit. Rebooted the machine, black screen, no desktop. Fortunately, from my days installing Linux from scratch using chroot on Gentoo, a stage 3 Gentoo build, I know how to still get at the OS if everything fails. So I was able to get in and see that everything appeared to be working fine. I just had no screen. Turns out this was over a 6 or 7 hour period, that Ubuntu messed up. The third-party drivers for NVIDIA and AMD do not support the newest kernel or what have you. Had to uninstall those drivers. They didn't uninstall during the upgrade process. And that resulted in the black screen. So once I got that working, then it was time to get Synergy working, because I work off of this laptop that I had to have pulled out on my desk in front of my other computer that I was doing all my research on. The Synergy doesn't show the mouse cursor, which is kind of important, it turns out, when you want to click on something specifically.
Like the title bar to drag a window around.
Yeah. So Ubuntu 17.10 is switching from the Xorg Windows system to a new Windows system, Wayland. And Synergy has not implemented support for Wayland yet. Even though in February of last year, someone asked them about it and they said, absolutely, we'll have it implemented in 2017. Well, now Symfony is selling hard on Symfony 2 on every YouTube channel that there is, and even podcasts and stuff like that, despite the fact that...
Synergy 2, you mean?
Right.
You said Symfony.
Sorry. So Synergy 2, they're shilling this thing hard. They're selling and selling and selling. I've got 3 emails from them that say, last chance sale, buy a lifetime certificate today, right now, right now, right now. And I'm just thinking to myself, aren't you open source? Aren't you not supposed to do this? So anyways, there's a simple switch to revert from Wayland back to Xorg on the desktop. I'm back up and running. Get VirtualBox installed and updated. Everything's working fine. Finally done, and I'm back to work the next morning. But total nightmare.
Sounds like it. So what's the big difference between Wayland and Xorg?
I'll let Eric go first because he's on delay.
No, I'm going off topic, so answer John.
John?
I said, what's the big difference between Wayland and Xorg? What are they changing?
From my understanding, they're trying to change as little as possible, but update the whole Windows Manager interface to be more friendly to developers and maintainers. As you can imagine, X11 turned into Xorg is a huge, huge project. And I think that just the software complexity got too high for anyone to maintain in a reliable way. So Wayland is the attempt to hit the reset button, start over from scratch on something that everyone can support. So far, no one's supporting it.
And do you think it'll be accepted by other distributions other than Ubuntu?
I think so. I mean, I've messed with X11.
Actually, Red Hat was doing the first big push of Wayland. Wayland's been pretty prominent in the KDE community for a while, and Red Hat was their big KDE backers were have been pushing the Wayland builds for a while. Everybody's been kind of waiting for it to get blessed by Ubuntu, and now it's sort of maybe kind of happening. It's not really clear. It looks like it is, but it's not really. It doesn't seem to be rolling out as everybody expected. And it's one of these things where Wayland's been around for years, and people are starting to feel like we're missing the boat on it. Like, okay, the adoption that the community felt like it should have gotten. Everybody's sticking with the old school stuff, and OS distributors like Red Hat, like Ubuntu, are starting to say, well, we can't jazz up our interfaces anymore until we embrace Wayland or until we move off Xorg. And the only other thing out there really that has any sort of traction is Wayland. So I know all this, and I don't even follow I don't even follow Linux desktops that closely anymore. But yeah, it's been going on for a while. But you bring up an interesting point, Thomas. And I've been trying to bring thinking questions to the show lately. So I guess this will be mine. I'm kind of going off the cuff here. I heard you say the difficulty of maintaining open source projects like Xorg, and there's been a lot surfacing lately around the way maintainers are maintaining open source projects, from things as to our hearts like Laravel, and people not feeling like not really agreeing with the way Taylor manages that project. And I, quite honestly, I feel that it's his project. He is actually free to kind of manage it however he wants. But for as long as he does that, we go back to the whole enterprise ready argument. You will not be anywhere close there as long as you feel like word on everything that happens on your project. It's fine. It's your project. You're absolutely entitled to have the last word of everything that's done. But as long as it's in that state, there will be no commercial adoption to the level of enterprise implementation that everybody feels like Laravel is ready for. But that's neither here nor there. The other thing I'm hearing a lot about is people who are trying to maintain open source projects burnt out on the time commitment and effort that open source projects are taking now, because you do have big companies who are implementing these open source solutions, even small projects, open source libraries, and there's all of a sudden these huge expectations set onto the project maintainers of keeping these projects, compatible, up to date, bug free, security issue free, and you're seeing a lot of open source maintainer burnout. I know you, Thomas, recently within the last year, took over the helm of being an open source maintainer for a very prominent package, and we've heard from you as well, saying this is a lot more work than I anticipated. So I'm kind of throwing the question out there: what do you think can be done? I mean, do you think more maintainers should kind of take Taylor's approach of, no, screw all you guys, I'm going to do this on my schedule, the way I want to do it, when I want to do it, and that's the final word, which seems to work for him. I mean, he doesn't, you get a lot of new releases of Laravel, or do you think there's another solution? I mean, because it definitely looks like the maintainers who try to be very accommodating to requests, who try to look at all the PRs, they're the ones that are struggling with burnout. Open forum, free discussion. What do you guys think?
Well, I think GitHub, the structure of GitHub right now is the structure of open source. You have code issues, pull requests, and point releases. And that's the way that I think most open source maintainers use it, but that means that they're in charge, that one person is in charge of the code, the issues, the pull requests, and the point releases. And what I would really like to see is somebody who just takes pull requests. Somebody who just says, is this pull request properly tested? Is this pull request changing things that it shouldn't change? And then have them sign off on a pull request for approval by the lead, and then have the lead issue the final change and maybe point release. I know that was a big issue for me when I was reviewing code getting pushed to IronQ. Was why did they push it? Did they put enough documentation into their pull request? And did they change something that they didn't say that they were changing? And you've got to read through sometimes thousands of lines of code to see that they didn't sneak something in there that's going to break everything. And especially with tests, I would be updating the version to support Laravel 5.4, and I look at the tests, and the tests are no longer valid fundamentally because of how Laravel has changed fundamentally. So I'm modifying tests while modifying code. And if somebody sends me a PR with modified code and modified tests, how do I know that they're continuing the same? There's so much oversight that has to be done. And then on top of the oversight, there's one person who's taking responsibility for anything going wrong.
See, I have a little bit of a different take. Well, not necessarily a different take. I think there should be a business built around being an open source maintainer. If you're maintaining a project,
I like where you're going with this, John.
Yeah, if you're maintaining a project, it's going to go the direction you want it to go. But if a company is relying on your product or your project for their product that they are making money off of, they should be paying to have things done that they want done. If they need something fixed or they want a new feature, they should be paying for it. And
I think John is hitting the nail on the head for me. This is exactly what I have the exact same thought process as John on this. I think a compensation mechanism needs to be put in place so that maintainers do get some sort of compensation for these critical issues that companies are probably willing to pay to have fixed. I mean, I know for years it was taboo to think about making money in open source, but the whole principle of open source was that that's how you made money, was through support, not through the software, but through support of the software, not through the whatever, but through the support of whatever. That's always been the fundamental philosophy of open source. And the problem is we never implemented that avenue of compensation to make it very easy for a maintainer to be compensated by a company who are looking for fixes.
Sure, we did.
Sorry, John, didn't mean to cut you off, but
that's something GitHub could build in so easily to say, I'm going to open this issue on this project, and I'm willing to pay X dollars to get this fixed. And then the maintainer can decide, do I want to work on a feature I want, or do I want to make some money on this and tackle this other feature?
Bounties.
And
it doesn't even have to be the maintainer. It could be a bug bounty.
Bug bounty.
Yeah, it could be a bug bounty system through GitHub.
Yeah, it could be 20 different people saying, "Hey, I'll pay $5 for this," and a big corporation will say, "I'll pay $500 for this," and then once it's fixed, the maintainer gets that money from all those people because they fixed the problem that they had.
So what about Synergy? I mean, I've been spouting my hate for what Synergy's business model is for a long time now. But my biggest issue with them is that they paywalled the code, or they paywalled the compiled code.
They paywalled the compilation of the code. Yeah. I mean, you can't argue that they felt that was a service worth compensation, so they do it.
But now they're making enough money that they're advertising all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that
doesn't mean they're making money. It means they're trying to make money.
Yeah, and
I've always felt that Synergy.
Good.
I apologize, guys. My delay over here is absolutely horrible.
Just keep going.
Yeah, I don't want to go off on a rant with Synergy either, because I think John is talking about a more valid point here. But yeah, I mean, they adhere to the open source model where they've released the code. You can get the code, you compile the code yourself. But if you want the compiled version, which they feel has value, or if you want support, you've got to pay. But I don't think they're making money hand over fist because Synergy is a very, very, very niche market. I would be surprised to find out that they're making more than a couple of $100,000 off it. I mean, really,
So
I don't think they're making that much money at all.
If they're paywalling the compiled code, what's to stop me from taking the open source, compiling it, and releasing it? Is there something in their terms or in the I can't even think.
Well,
you know what I'm talking about.
They've closed sourced everything they built on top of it. So there's the Synergy core, which is all of the base API functionality, but everything else that makes it actually work or makes it convenient is now closed sourced.
Okay, so
it's not closed source. It's just you got to pay for it.
Yeah, what they have isn't open source. They're using an open source project to make money now.
Well, they closed an open source project, so they moved it from the Synergy
honestly,
project.
I mean, Thomas. I mean, that argument can be made with a lot of commercial projects that will take
nothing by Red Hat.
Product. Well, but that's fundamentally an open source company.
Well, how is Synergy?
They're always
not.
I mean, let's take IBM for example, right? You think their IBM WebSphere web server is completely and 100% proprietary code, or do you think they pull in open source projects into that code base that they then turn around and resell for thousands of dollars to enterprises? Yes, that's exactly what they do. That's why they're WebSphere. And Synergy, yes, they add their little.
Yeah, Synergy may have started out open source, but there's nothing saying you can't change the direction you want to go.
Well, except the license.
But people change licenses all the time. Up until this point, you're open source, and then after that, you're closed source. You tell me you couldn't change IronQ's license right now? There's oftentimes people are bouncing between different licenses.
I honestly don't know. I don't know licenses well enough to answer that question. I wouldn't do it because of that. If I were to want to change the license on that project, I would hire a lawyer before I did it because I don't know.
I think as you release, so if you release a version, you're releasing it under a specific license. If you release the next version, you can change the license, and I see licenses change all the time from BSD to Apache or back and forth. I don't think it's unusual for that to happen. And I may start out as an open source project and decide I want to try and make money off of it, and I'm not doing it through support anymore. So why don't I do it through the code?
Now, I think Synergy is still just one person, maybe a couple people. And I know for a fact, well, the Symless GitHub belongs to a specific person. It's not an organization GitHub.
But I'm not sure if I'm allowed. I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't be able to allow.
I'm sorry, there are two.
I'm not sure why I wouldn't be allowed to share this with you.
I'm almost certain that if I talked to the CEO of Symless, Nick Bolton, he could sell me on everything he's doing in 2 minutes, and I'd be totally fine with it. It's just weird for me because I remember Synergy in 2001, and it was open source, open source, open source. I mean, it was where I first started using open source software on the regular.
That was 16 years ago.
which is why it would probably only take him 2 minutes to sell.
Let me ask you a question. So you're talking about a software package that you've used for 16 years or however long. You think it's 2 developers. I mean, what do you think?
And now they want $20. Come on,
indigent servants to you for moving forward.
All this over $20.
These guys don't deserve to make money off this. Yeah,
we spent way too much time on this.
I don't understand what the problem is.
Thomas, you're batting 0 today. I'm sorry.
And I'm an open source supporter. I'm an open source supporter. I'm an open source supporter of the philosophy, but I also think open source developers need to be able to make a living, and this is one of the ways they make a living. And we, the philosophy behind open source allows for this. I don't understand really what your hang-up is with it.
It's time for me to release the hate. I think it's an irrational. It's an irrational thing built up over literally 20 years.
It's because you rely on that piece of software so heavily, and you want it.
And I haven't used. It was free. I haven't used Synergy 2 yet, but I can tell you that Synergy 1 literally hasn't changed in the last 18 years. So I guess being asked to pay for Synergy 1 again upset me because it hasn't changed. It just moved from free to pay.
Fun fact, I pay for Synergy. I've paid for Synergy since...
You son of a bitch.
Probably for the last... probably for the last... when I used to have a lot of multiple systems. And probably as a result of that, they had me as an alpha tester on Synergy 2. And I did a live screen share with at least 2 of the developers. I don't know if they're the only 2 developers on the project.
Was it a guy and a girl?
An Asian guy and I think he was a British guy.
Hey, look at this. I pay for Synergy too. And I don't even use it.
Oh, yeah. No, I got that wrong. Yeah, that was both developers. You were on the call with both of them. All 2 of them.
And so I got a very, very early release that was more broken than fixed. Talk through some of the issues that we saw with it. Yeah, and quite honestly, they asked me would I upgrade, and I told them no. I mean, there was nothing compelling here to make me upgrade. The original one, the one that I already have a license for, works fine. The reality of it is I really don't use it that much, but I still do use it. Yeah, I mean, the only thing they asked me, that they said, what would compel you to upgrade? I'm like, if there was an easy way to drag and drop files from one system to another, that might have me upgrade. The reality of it is I can do that now because I have all Mac, so I can actually drag and drop files pretty easily between systems. But I paid for Synergy for a while. I actually paid
for a while. It's not a subscription model.
I think. Well, I guess what I should say is, I paid for it a while back. I guess is what I'm saying. I've had a license for a while. Yeah,
I paid $5 back in happened to be September 11th, 2014.
And that's not the only open source project. I've actually donated to the charity that the author of Vim to. I've actually paid money for open source solutions to those developers because, again, it's very important to me that I feel like that they should be able to make money off of it.
Well, all right.
You just got to stop being so stingy, Thomas. I think that's the core of the problem.
If it's something that you find useful and you can't afford to pay $20 for it, then let me know. I'll help you out. I mean, come on, it's $20 on something you use.
It's not the money. It's
I mean,
the principle.
straight up, Thomas.
But you
we
find
bought
use out of it.
a subscription. We bought a license for Spark, which is the Laravel Commerce. We bought a subscription for Spark. Have never used it, but to this day, I feel good about it because at the time that was one of the only ways that Taylor was getting an income through Laravel. I don't know if he had Forge deployed then or not, but John and I talked about it. We're like, yeah, and I mean, Spark was like $100 or something. It wasn't a $5 or $10 or $20 software purchase. It was three figures, 3 digits, like 100.
Supposedly,
I think.
Supposedly, drag and drop files from one computer to another is coming soon.
Yeah,
Just
all
FYI.
They
the
should have named that after
pro
me.
features. All the pro features are coming soon.
Not all of them. Clipboard sharing's on there. Doesn't
That's
say
an
coming
old
soon.
feature. Speaking of
Anyway.
open source
So
projects,
I didn't.
Wine 3.0 has been released.
Is that still a
Thomas,
thing?
you've already been whining enough. Do you really want to go more?
No, I've been beering.
Wah, wah, wah.
You guys know what wine is, right?
The Windows emulator, right? If I'm thinking of the right one.
Yeah, although they decry the name emulator, they consider themselves a dynamically linked library
Actually, what
environment.
wine stands for is wine is not emulator. Or wine is not emulating or something like that. It's
wine is not an emulator.
Yeah.
It's a compatibility layer
wine is
capable of
not
running
an
Windows
emulator.
applications on several POSIX-compliant operating systems such as Linux, macOS, and BSD. So the interesting thing about this is they've added Direct3D 10 and 11 support, which is not the most up-to-date, but it is what every current game supports. Now,
do they support Wayland?
I don't know, but they do. They do have a schedule for Direct3D 12 and Vulkan, as well as OpenGL ES. So there are interesting ramifications here, because if a Mac can run Windows games just as well as a Windows machine, you might see some advancements in the Mac gamer world.
Yeah, whatever. That's not going to happen.
I don't care enough about
I don't
DLLs to
care.
even consider it.
All right.
A Mac
moving.
is for professionals, not for gamers.
Let's take one of your tickets then.
Thomas, your connection is just as bad. Just FYI.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if that was Thomas's connection or if I just lost you guys.
No, that was Thomas's.
Awesome. Sudden complete drop in
All
quality.
right, so I'm going to go ahead and throw something out there. I heard an interesting story today on the news. There's an app out there now that you can give your consent to sexual encounters before your date.
Can I just use my camera for that?
Now,
Turn my camera on and say, "Hey, can you please tell me that this is consensual? Record that."
So
do I need an app?
You feel like there's a need to do that as well? Oh, what
No,
world
I don't think you do.
Now?
But
we have to document
I don't
this.
need an app for it.
It's not even a
I
matter of.
agree. That's what I'm saying.
Am I back to both of you guys?
Yeah, you're fine.
It's not even a matter of documenting it in any way. It's the fact that this concept fundamentally misunderstands and misrepresents what consent is.
Exactly. Consent can change.
Yeah, consent does change, and
Yeah.
it can change at any moment. And tying someone into a contract like that is fucking bizarre. And can you imagine how bad the Harvey Weinstein situation would be if he had actresses contractually obligated to have sex with him? That's weird.
I don't think it makes you contractually obligated to have sex, Thomas.
No,
I don't think that's the way it works.
But it's trying to alleviate any sort of liability where if I had somebody sign that and then did things they didn't like and then they wanted out, then technically they're contractually obligated because they can't come back at me and say it wasn't consensual. So it is an obligation at that point.
Okay. But it's a post obligation, right? That you had consented, the act had occurred. Now, whether or not you had a desire to change your consent before the actual action happened, that's an argument. And whether or not this application takes that into account, I don't know. I don't know if you can retract your consent before the action. But again, we do have a very real world scenario that not a lot of people like to talk about it, except for the knuckleheads out there who make these poor arguments about it. But the fact retractions that happen, that I thought I was going to enjoy this, I thought it was what I wanted, but after it happened, I realized it wasn't. I made a mistake, and
but that's
now
different.
I will say that I wasn't. But that is what this is trying to address.
But how does it address that? It doesn't address that problem specifically at all. All you have to say is I didn't agree to the thing. I wouldn't
say it doesn't address it at all. It does address it on some level, but I don't think So I started this off. I am agreeing with you. I don't think this is a good solution, but to say that it doesn't address that at all, Thomas, is wrong. It does address it.
I think it addresses.
It shows that there was consent at some point.
Potentially.
There was the thought of it.
I think it addresses one thing very specifically very well, which is people who have sexually transmitted diseases. I think that the fact that you can confirm with a person outside of the scope of sexual contact that they are aware that you have a sexually transmitted disease, that's important on a legal level. So, yeah, that's good. I think that's good because we live in a world where that issue goes unaddressed. But
that's true.
Other things, fundamentally, consent, the term consent, shouldn't be anywhere near this kind of contractual thing. You shouldn't be saying that I have proof they gave consent, because consent is a fluid thing. It can be withdrawn for any reason. Now, just an establishment of knowledge of the physical situation, that's something entirely different. To say, I have an STD, you're confirming that you know that. That's totally fine because that's knowledge. That's proof of knowledge. But the other things they're trying to address here, where BDSM is okay, or videotaping is okay, or that kind of thing, those should not be part of the same system of proof of knowledge. Those are consensual things.
And I have to ask the question, maybe I'm old school, but how do you go that far that fast? Like, if you don't know a person well enough where you have to document consent, but yet you feel like there's an opportunity for these more advanced sexual encounters, I don't know, that doesn't match up in my head. It's like,
I think we're living in a world where men are
concerned about that. Have the trust.
I agree with you, Eric. That's old school thinking, and I completely agree with you.
I don't think it's old school thinking. I think it's monogamous thinking.
Okay, that's a good point.
You know, and no offense to anyone in the room, the three of us don't bank our lifestyle on looks. There are very much people out there who make money looking great, and they
Speak for
have
yourself.
sex every night
Speak
because
for
of
yourself, Pickle. Right.
The pixelated look does it for you, Eric, for sure.
it. It makes that beard look much more well grown out.
My pants are flying off right now.
Yeah, I think
I just
proof of knowledge is fine. Proof of consent is totally a fictional concept.
Yeah, completely. That's unfair to women that would sign something like that. Not even necessarily women, people.
Yeah,
To say that they're okay with something and then they change their mind.
well, sometimes you have Indian food and you change your mind for a reason you don't want to disclose to your partner.
Never mind. No, we won't get into that. Scratch that. No need to go down there. Whoa. Again.
A couple of months
Didn't mean
ago.
it that way.
Oh, jeez. I'm going to put a record scratch sound effect there. A couple months ago,
that'd be funny.
A couple months ago, we dug into it and found the end of Silex sort of announcement. Someone who had spoken with Fabian, but Fabian himself hadn't spoken out about it. So we've got a pair of announcements officially from Symphony, from the horse's mouth itself. January 12th, the end of Silex. January 17th, the end of Symphony 1.
This is
I don't know if
January
anyone.
12th in the past. January
Well, this
12th
was
already
this
happened.
was when the posts were made on the Symphony blog.
Gotcha.
Symphony 1 is now 8 years old. The last major version.
Symphony 4 at this point?
Yeah. So Fabian is announcing that Symphony 1 is shutting down at the end of February, and there will be no support unless there is public demand for it.
No, unless there is compensation for it. Didn't we just talk about this?
That's how he measures public demand. Silex is going to be ending life in June of 2018. So we're going to see these two legacy products really fade out. But I'm amazed that Symphony 1 is just now getting end of life.
Symphony 1 is no longer being supported. Symphony isn't going away. It's up to Symphony 4. Silex is going away as a solution because of, again, Symphony 4 and the way they decided to implement it as a minimal install.
Right.
So it's not really comparing apples to apples. Symphony 1 is a very old implementation of the Symphony platform, and it's just no longer going to be supported. Silex,
but that's amazing Silex to me.
Would be
which
part?
So Fabian is saying that the last major version of Symphony 1 was 8 years ago, and now it's end of life next month. So in 2010, the last major version. I'm very impressed, especially when I read an issue on the Laravel framework GitHub that says, "Can releases please be properly tested?" And it has a list of 9 commits that were then rolled back because they broke something within the 5.5 branch. I mean, that's just the last 4 months or 2 months. And massive number of people on there saying, yes, please test before you release. And Taylor's response was, from now on, I'll just be closing all PRs without good tests and explanation. And it's like, wait, so you weren't checking the code for the framework before pushing it to a release state?
How did we get from Symphony to Laravel?
Because I'm so impressed by how Fabian is doing things, and I'm driven completely crazy by how Taylor is doing things. Taylor himself has touted the lifestyle of the BDFL. Do you guys know what that is?
The benevolent dictator for life.
Dictator for life.
Right.
Which you cannot put upon yourself. The community has to give you that title. But okay.
Well, that's not a good title. There's no such thing as a benevolent dictator. Because that's not what a dictator does. I'm driven so crazy. Now, this thread, it's not just people popping in and saying, I agree, I agree. These are all people who are flagged as contributors to Laravel, who have had their PRs accepted and been marked as a contributor to the repository. And how can you have 5.531 reverted, 5.30 to 7 to 0.6? Those are all reverts for bad, broken code. I mean, you can't say you're enterprise ready. You can't say you're even small business ready when you've got 9 reverted, broken changes in minor revisions. And I brought this up with Jose, my boss, and he doesn't know anything about this whole thing. And his comment was just, it seems like he's overextending himself. And it goes all the way back to what you were saying, is how do you not overextend yourself? How do you not take on every job? And I think calling yourself a benevolent dictator for life is intentionally taking on more than you can handle.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm bringing it all the way back around.
You've been ready for this one all day, haven't you?
No, I was actually much more ready for Eric's ticket about contractual sex. Been waiting.
You had a good response to it.
Yeah.
You had a good response. Yeah.
I look at Symfony and I look at Laravel, and my decision today was that given the option, I would no longer be a Laravel developer. I would be a Symfony developer. Because I don't want to go to a new company and say, Laravel is my framework of choice. I'm glad to go to them and say, I know Laravel very well. I am a guru. I would rather use Symfony. Because the state of Laravel right now is so crazy in flux and so out of touch with the open source community that I can't present myself as a member of that congregation.
Wow. Harsh words. Yeah.
And I'm not happy about it. I'm bummed about it. I'm not bragging that something has changed. I think it's a bummer that Laravel has ended up in this situation where it elevated PHP across the globe and has become a problem in the PHP community.
Well, I know I've heard great things about Symfony 4, and I mean, they're both great frameworks, right? There's no denying that. They're both very successful. But I'm tending to agree at this point, not being fully vested in one per se. We use Laravel a lot for some of our projects, but kind of have to agree with if the maintainer is calling himself a benevolent dictator, that's a little bit scary.
And even jokingly, it's just, and like I just did a rollout where I updated all of our 5.3 code to 5.5, and I had to dig into the most current version of 5.5 to make sure that when I had done the pull request, I hadn't specified a version that was fundamentally broken, because there have been 6 fundamentally broken versions of 5.5. Did I make that composer lock file on the wrong day? I don't want to be in that situation. The biggest problem I had was that we were using a GeoIP library that was 2 years old, and it had a breaking change. But it was 2 years since we'd updated it. I don't want it to have to be 3 days.
Don't you run that risk with any? Don't you run that risk with any composer project you might use?
Not with Symfony.
You still run the risk. You're hoping that they maintain it better.
But 6 times in 2 months is way too high of a percentage for a completely broken version.
Valid point. Valid point.
I'm still a subscriber to Laravel.xyz.
I still feel like Laravel's managed where it's my project, mine being Taylor, and I'm doing what interests me. I think he has enough people kind of following him now where they're just giddy about everything he does. He can never do anything wrong, which is harmful to Taylor, whether he sees it or not. I don't know. I can't. I don't have conversations with the guy where he says, "Yeah, no, I know these guys will always say I'm right." And it seems like every time he sends out a tweet, "Hey, I'm thinking about changing the syntax here." There's like 1,000 people. That's brilliant. You're so smart. I'm so happy. Oh, this is so nice. It's like for constructive feedback, people. He's not looking for everybody just continuously praise him, or maybe he is. I don't know. But I rarely see people give him criticism, and those who do get ousted pretty quick from the Laravel community as a whole. So, whereas again with Symfony, it's a commercial entity. There is a business mandate to stay compatible, to have a structure, and I feel, again, to John's point, as a company, we've got to start putting a higher value on that. We love Symfony, just to implement. I love how easy it is to use, but the reality of having these changes from minor versions where this functionality wasn't in 5.2, but it's in 5.3, is killing us. It's absolutely killing us.
Symfony, you meant Laravel, right?
Laravel, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, Laravel. And so having the more structured environment of Symfony, I think as a company, as a business, as people who make money off of our code, we need to put more value in. And we've been talking about this for a while, so
Yeah, and with what Taylor said as far as closing PRs that aren't properly tested, there's nothing wrong with that if he's not just saying that flippantly, like being pissed off at some comment. It's okay to require tests of your code, especially for an open source project. Show me the tests that prove that what you did works, and keep your pull requests small. You don't make them 1,000 lines unless they really have to be to implement a feature.
Sure, but if you go to Laravel's framework GitHub page right now, the build is listed as failing because the unit tests are ignored. And that's the problem, is that there's a pointer here to collection get is broken after commit 22554. That commit that got pulled in failed a unit test. That's what I don't understand, is that if you're failing unit tests, why the fuck is your commit getting pulled in? That's what your unit test says. Don't do it. And collection get is a very standard method for every Laravel app. Acting as helper is broken in unit tests. Individual Illuminate packages are not updated since 5528. You know, if you have unit tests and you ignore them, and then you say, "I don't understand why people think we're not enterprise ready," then you have your head up your ass.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I know, baby.
From where I sit, yeah.
Yeah, I just and Taylor's response was, "I am benevolent dictator. I will be stricter about accepting pull requests in the future." And
There's nothing wrong with being strict.
Right, but you know, you should also follow your own unit tests.
Yeah.
It's annoying to me. We've pushed Laravel. You guys alone have introduced Laravel to what, 15 developers, 20 developers that you work with on a regular basis, and probably in the area of 100 developers in the San Diego area.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely built a little career around it.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I mean, everything I write right now is built on Laravel. It's not like I'm using Symfony and maliciously bagging on Laravel. We've had concerns for a long time,
right?
You know, and some of the concerns
and we've been bitten by these things,
right,
in the past. I mean, that's the thing. I think we're speaking from, you know, real world, real implementation, money being, you know, lost because things break when we try to do a compose or update implementation sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, we felt the pain.
So we're not just, at least speaking for myself, I'm not out just bagging on Laravel. Laravel elevated my programming capabilities by an incredible amount, but the state that it's in now, it needs attention as a company, not as a framework. If all
it needs direction.
Right.
Is what it means.
If all of Taylor's work from now for the next 3 months was dedicated towards building a structure that brought it up to speed with something like Symfony, I would be perfectly fine with that. No new features. Just bring the company into relevance.
Yeah.
So let's move on because we've spent way too long on it. Thomas, I would love to hear hear about your thoughts around confirmation emails. This kind of piqued my interest.
There was 10 years ago a conversation among everyone who used email that email was fundamentally broken and was no longer being used for the purpose it was intended. And there were a lot of problems with it. When Gmail came out, that resolved the spam issue for me. The spam issue was one of the big issues where you had more spam than relevant email by an order of magnitude. But I find myself with these workflow patterns that I should not have because I still use email. Eric, you're zoning out. Still there? Turn into a zony.
Yeah, I'm listening. No, I'm listening.
You guys know what a confirmation. You guys know what a confirmation email is.
Yes. You get them all the time. Sign up for a new service. Please go confirm your email address.
So this is, by its very definition, a one-time email. The moment that you click the link to verify your email, the code that's being used to validate that account gets tossed and will never ever be used again. Nothing in that email is of any consequence ever after you click that link. Right?
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
So why do I have 500 confirmation emails just sitting in my inbox? Or why can't
You
I?
don't delete
Because you're
them?
not good at deleting.
Well, my workflow is when I get a confirmation email, I middle click it so that it opens it up in a new tab and delete it before I've even looked at the tab it opened. But why are we using email for that function? That's not what emails. We've turned email into an identity system.
It's not an identity system though. It's a confirmation of this is the email that I can send you notifications about the platform that you just signed up for. It's not
I don't ever want notifications. I just want access to the site, and they're using my email as my identity. And we've accepted that. It's either going to be my email, my Facebook, or my Gmail, or my Google Plus account, with all the OAuth implementations we have out there.
I think those are the options, right? Yeah, I'm not following what the issue is.
There wasn't an option for certain CSS3 functions until CSS3 was introduced. And even in Gmail, it was, 7 years ago that they introduced auto sorting by primary, social, promotion, update, and forum. But they've done...
Where are you going with this?
They've done nothing. There's been no progression in email clients.
I mean, nobody's making the argument that email is a viable platform to do a whole lot with, and people might put more trust into email than they should. But to say that it doesn't have any purpose, this is one of those purposes. Email is not a guaranteed delivery, and for you to think email, everything I need to do, I can do through email because I'm always going to get the documents I want. I'm always going to get the emails I want. I'm always going to know who it's from, and I'm always going to be secure and confident with it. That's not what email is. Me being able to say, I want to be able to log in to this site using this email address, and that company saying, okay, I just want to make sure that you actually have access to this account is perfectly valid. I mean, DNS does it, right? If our SSL certs do it. Like if I go to Let's Encrypt and say I need an SSL cert for a PHP Ugly, it then says, okay, I need to make sure that you own, you have access or some sort of level of ownership to that domain. So it's, I'm not getting my head around your argument right now.
And as a business owner, if I spin up a site, I just want to make sure I have a way of contacting you. Whether you check it or not, it's another story, but it's just a way to confirm I have a good way to contact you. Your mute was backwards. We could hear you
is that
smoking, but not hear you talking.
Excellent. I will tell you how this came up.
Okay.
I am implementing TOTP, timed one-time passwords. Now, timed one-time passwords includes Authy, Google Authenticator, and a couple other different solutions. They are part of MF, multi-factor user authentication.
MFA, yeah.
MFA. Okay, but TOTP doesn't have to be part of multi-factor authentication. It's just used as part of multi-factor authentication. So because you're generating a secret for a user that is completely arbitrary, you could have a user account bound to a TOTP.
Correct.
Yeah, you could have a user account bound exclusively to a TOTP password.
Correct.
But no one does that because they want your email.
I want to be able to contact you.
I don't want to be contacted.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you want.
That's your personal problem. Don't sign up for my service if you don't want me to contact you.
My God.
Yeah, that's and even with something like Authy. So your argument is Authy is always used for multi-factor authentication, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. that it can be used as a way of validating your ID. Even Authy has to validate who you are at some point. So they happen to do theirs through a phone number.
But they don't have to. Yeah, but that's only for recovery. That's only for recovery. With Google Authenticator, you don't.
And it's not validating my It's not validating my identity. It's just validating that I have
email. Email's not validating your identity.
No, it's selling
email doesn't validate your identity.
When you sign up for a free service, giving them access to your email address is
There's no such thing as a free service.
Right, because you're always giving an email. You're always giving your data.
So would you rather pay for a service and not give them your email? Would you do that, Mr. I don't want to pay for Synergy compiled version?
I'm calling.
Or do you want them to continue? Do you want them to continue to offer you a free service and not take not have a way to make money off of it? Is that what you're
calling
looking
for an uprising. I am calling for users.
You're an uprising.
To know the value of their personal information and refuse to give it to people just because they ask.
So I like
I agree,
there, but there's a fundamental issue there in the fact that a TOTP is only 6 digits, right?
It's your decision, but yes, it defaults to 6 digits, but it can be 100.
Right, but by default, being 6 digits, there's no way I can make that unique per person. If I had
but it's timed.
Any more than 999,000 people. If I had a million or more people, it doesn't
per 30-second period.
No, if I had more than 1 million users
in 30 seconds,
I fundamentally can't use that.
No, you can.
No,
it's a hit
in 1 second. No, if I had 1 million members of my site, at any given second, 2 people are going to have the same 6-digit code.
Sure. So make it. Well, okay. It's not 1 million though. 6-digit code. It's 6-digit numeric and alphanumeric.
No, it's numeric.
They're not alphanumeric. They're just numeric.
Okay, make it 7 digits. Make it 8 digits. You can make it 8 digits when you create the service. That's why I was looking at it today. 6 digits is the default, but I can make it 8.
Okay, I haven't seen 8, so I'll take your word for it. When I implemented it before, I must have used the defaults because it was 6 digits.
And I'm pretty sure I've set up multi-factor authentication where it has said, okay, now when you're first setting it up, it says your 6-digit code as it appears on your screen. So I'm not 100% sure.
It displays that after you scan the QR code. Because the QR code includes that encoding data. The initialization vector has the secret key, the length of the OTP, password, and a bunch of other validation information. Because it's an algorithm that uses just the system clock and the secret key to generate an OTP. So, which was new to me. I thought there was some kind of cross communication between the Authy and the service. They never talk to each other except for the first time they talk. It's just the QR code. That's it.
Yep. And another fun fact is when you change time zones, especially if you go like East Coast to West Coast here in the US and there's a 3-hour time difference, your Authy will break, your 2-factor will break, and you need to resync your codes back up because of that.
Yeah.
I've had that happen to me in the past.
Yeah, it's an interesting system, but as cryptocurrency guys, we're aware that if we lose our secret key, it's gone. The money's gone. And there are people who have invested hundreds of millions of dollars, and the only thing they have is the secret key. They don't have an email backup. They don't have validation to make sure that their stuff is being used by them and not by somebody else. And that this is millions of dollars of people's individual money. I think it's okay to say that I should be able to sign into Facebook without disclosing my email address. And Facebook actually is the worst example. Facebook probably needs my email more than anything else. I have email verifications from Club Penguin. I don't need that. Or like MLab, when I wanted to download a trial of some software.
So
they wanted me to verify my identity.
Question. Let me ask you a simple question. You go to log into your Club Penguin account, and you can't remember what your password is.
It's gone.
How do you recover your password?
Then it's gone.
So you've completely lost all your hats and scarves and everything you bought for your Penguin.
Pokebucks?
And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying? It's like it's not a real world.
But that's the way the real world was until somebody started using email addresses to verify identities. And even then,
and they did that to make it better.
Right, but now the main vector for attacking somebody is getting their email address, getting their email access.
You get your teeth sunk into these topics real deep, Thomas.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You keep talking about it. I can tell you right now, you're not going to convince me. I doubt you're going to convince John. I doubt you're going to convince any of the 3 listeners who are still listening.
I firmly believe that the 3 listeners who are still listening are listening explicitly for this, because I always leave it right at the end of the show. The rest of the listeners, when they hear this part coming, the rest of the listeners drop out. But there are a dedicated few who like my horrifying perspective on technology. All right.
Well, I tell you what, this delay is absolutely killing me. It seems to be getting worse.
I have great news for you. We're going to extend your delay from the couple seconds it is now to 7 days. Because we are at the end of the show.
Thank God.
I wish I could say this one was fun. There's a lot of arguing in this one.
It's been great.
I think we did do a lot of arguing.
I'm glad we did it when there was.
I don't know if I agree with you there.
Such a good delay. Maybe I'll get this one edited before Wednesday.
All right, I think that's a wrap. We're done. Episode 82 of PHP Uglies in the
82.
92.
92. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm John Congdon.
I'm Tom Rideout. Keep it ugly. I gotta pee so bad. And stop recording.
I'm stopping the broadcast.